Good evening, everybody, and we are back with another round table. Tonight we have Sleeping Warrior, and he has a presentation ready to show everybody that says the globe's leading expert debunked. Tony, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, mate. Listen, can you give us a little bit more information about the title?
Well, just before we do, just to allow bums to get on seats, have you seen this coronavirus coach company that's shipping all the infected people back from China from London up to the Wirral? He's not wearing a hazmat suit, but the problem is the bloke that he sat next to.
Hang on, what's that tattoo on his arm? Is that SAS or something?
I don't know. But check this out. The guy he sat next to. This is two different coaches. There's a government official in a hazmat suit next to him, right? And he's not wearing a hazmat suit. So he's either going to get infected and kill everybody, or it's a drill that they're passing off as real world. It's like, hello, you're going to die, dude. It's okay, though, don't worry. He's giving him 14 days off now, or 10 days. His company's giving him 10 days off work so he can recover.
That's a pretty good spot, that, Tony. I have to say, pretty good spot.
Yeah, there's two of them apparently, and neither hazmat suits are being worn by government officials, but the coach drivers won't contract it apparently. So it's not down to the coach company; it's down to the government telling them that they don't need to, because basically it's probably a drill, guys, that they're passing off real world. But if this really was real world, that guy would die. It's that simple.
Right, I'm just gonna drag the chat over for just a second so I can say a few hellos to some people. So we have, let's see, I think Arwin was in one of the first ones in. AJ&M, you were the first one in. Nice to see you in. Arwin, gonna do. Paige, thank you very much for the $7.99 super chat. We also have Clarion, who says #citation please. Clearly you've not kept up to date with the flat earth debate if you don't know what that actually means. We have Gleaming, we have The Plain Truth, who says LOLO what ho, I got the shot yesterday and it's dollars hot, cannot wait to see it. Musicians for Truth, also known as Dreads, nice to see you in. Without question, Sternal, I better see Montreal. Storm Williams, Globe Busters, nice to see you in, Bob. Who else have we got in? Good Sims for All, nice to see you in. I was actually watching a bit of that your last video that you put out, so I highly recommend people go over there and watch that. MUK, nice to see you in. I think I've got everybody. Oh, Ryan, Q Vincent, and we are completely up to date. Oh, Ninja Man, how can I forget you? Right, so without further ado, Tony, do you want to explain a little bit more about this presentation, what the title means, and then we'll get straight on into it and I'll go on mute.
So Rumpus did a 4-hour hangout the other night, and I didn't watch it live. I only caught up with it a bit last day or two, and his whole hangout is based around the claim that light curves. Now, light doesn't follow a curved trajectory through a density gradient. Rumpus knows this. He's been told many times, but he's happy to tell his audience that it does. And I don't agree with him because he's not telling the truth. He's misrepresenting the sugar solution that he showed on your hangout, and his whole argument relies on the sugar solution being an accurate representation of what he claims is the curvature of light through the atmosphere. The standard 7/6R. Now, if his whole claim revolves around that assertion, then it has to be true, right? If it isn't true, then his whole hangout, his whole presentation is based on a false statement of fact, and it misleads people into thinking that light curves in the atmosphere. Okay. Well, it doesn't.
Okay, well, now that you've explained what it is, I'm not going to steal your thunder because I know you're just going to go on one right now. So here we go. This is Tony, Sleeping Warrior. He's going to do his presentation, and I'm going to go on mute, and I'm going to leave you to it. Go ahead, Tony.
I would do this in full screen, but for some reason, when I click on view this in full screen, it won't let me do it because it actually goes across to my other monitor. So I'm not able to present it full screen. So you'll just have to accept that it is what it is. It just won't let me do it. But it doesn't matter. Enough is on screen for me to make the points that I need to make. So I'm going to say that Rumpus is telling lies about what light actually does. Now, regardless of the shape of the Earth, be it spherical or flat, the way light behaves is the same on both models because light does its own thing. Now, I don't know if you're supposed to be on mute, Ranty, but if you are, I can hear you tapping away. All right, okay. So Rumpus was responding to a claim from back in on my channel from a few years back, that the Isle of Man should not be seen from St. Bees at two different elevations. The original video on my channel, you can see it's my most popular video, but it makes the claim that we can see some land. And in this video from 2 years back, I can see this land on the horizon. Now, it was interesting because it appears to be floating. And I didn't know what it was I was looking at the time. And I called it floaty land because you can see that there appears to be sky underneath it. It's an inferior mirage of the land above it and the sky above that. And that's why it appears to be floating. And I asked the question, well, what was this land? It was 34 plus miles away, and it was taken from a claimed elevation on the video at 35 feet. That was cited from Google Earth. Now, it turned out to be 47 feet. Me and Ranty had gone and chucked the tape down and measured it, and it was 47. It was 12 feet smaller or lower in height than claimed as on the video. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the point that you should not see this land. To date, this video has not been debunked, even though ballers claim it has. But that isn't the point. I was challenged to go back and get the same observation from the beach by Slice Barkane. So I did. I went back to the beach and I got it. And on this video, hopefully you'll see it. Where's my mouse gone? There it is. For some reason, that's not the whole... There we go. That'll do. This is linked in the description box. It's been superseded. The original video has been superseded. And we're trying to see the same land, but lay on the beach. Now, the claim is, or my claim is, that this is like 700 feet of geometric drop behind the Earth horizon, right? You know, the apparent position where the sun appears to meet, where the sky appears to meet the land. We're told that it's a geometric horizon. We're told that that's where boats go over, but we know it's not because the oil platforms or the Black Swan argument shows that it's an apparent horizon and it therefore isn't geometric. So it means that boats can't go over the horizon because it isn't a curve. But this land that you see here, bear in mind it is faint, but this land here is the land in this on the previous slide. It's the same land, but this is from 35 or 42 feet or whatever feet it was. But Slice Barkane said go back and get it from the beach, so I did. And there was a ghost town. He completely ignored it. It's had less than 1,000 views, this video. But the point is that if we're on a sphere, that is 700 feet behind the bulge of water in front of us, but we can see it. Okay, it's squashed, compressed, and that's obviously a result of perspective. But Rumpus has been promising for years that he was going to make a presentation, and he took advantage of Ranty's show the other night to do just that, and he was responding to this in his video. Now, the curve calculator says that it's basically at 34 miles away, and I was like a foot off the water, a bit like the oil platforms video. Obviously, Rumpus wants 10 feet, but it was basically a foot off the water. It says that it's like 770 feet of geometric drop. And even if they account for refraction, it's still 660 feet, but the land we're looking at is 350 feet. So it's double what it should be. It should be behind the curve of the Earth, but it isn't. We see it. So we know what their explanations are going to be. They're just going to parrot talk refraction. And they're going to do that time and time again because we can't disprove it. They can't prove it, but it is their explanation. And of course, it's complete nonsense. But for it to be refraction, it means that you've got to have the light following a curved path. But light doesn't follow a curved path. So in the hangout with Rumpus on the other night, Rumpus was talking about this path of light of a laser through sugar solution. And he was using one of the three sugars to demonstrate it. Now, I've got a clip that I've got Ranty to play because for some reason my sound won't pass through. And I want you to listen to what Rumpus actually says. His whole presentation is absolutely based on light following a curved path. And he relies on this observation with sugar solution to demonstrate, and I'll quote his words, he says it's the cause of the curvature is the density gradient, okay? And that's paramount. If this fact is wrong, then his whole presentation is wrong. And I'm going to show that this fact is in fact wrong. and I'm going to show why it's wrong and prove that it's wrong. So therefore, his whole presentation needs to be dismissed because light does not follow a curved path. It doesn't follow a curved trajectory through the atmosphere. It cannot go all the way around the Earth so that you see your own arse in a telescope with the perfect bit of maths. It can't happen. So, Ranty, if you don't mind playing the clip from Rumpus and let me know when you click play, I'll listen to it as well so I'll remember exactly what he said and then I'll respond to what he says.
Here we go. So here in this tank, we've got some sugar solution and with the small concentrate at the bottom than at top. So we have a greater density here and a lower density there. And greater density means it refracts more, less density means it refracts less. And so therefore you get a curve which goes towards away from the normal, which means it becomes, so here's a little sample here of the light here, the laser here, it's coming in here, and it bends away from the normal following sort of Snell's law, although this is slightly playing with the rule because in Snell's law only really applies between sharp boundaries, but the effect of the rule, we can apply the rule still in this case where we've got higher density, higher refractive index, lower refractive index, it bends, becomes more horizontal, and in fact it becomes, and as it becomes more horizontal, it actually becomes dip, so you actually will get an arc over here, you have a slightly lower density and high density, it bends towards the normal, so it bends more, so it will actually form an arc. So that's what light does in situations with varying density.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I've got Rumpus's words on screen. I've quoted him pretty much verbatim. He says, so that's what light does in a varying density. I think he said gradient or medium. I accidentally snipped off his last word, but it doesn't matter. This is what Rumpus claims light does in a varying density medium. The trouble is, it's not the density of the medium that's causing it. It's sugar. There's 3 types of sugar, and sugar is dextrorotatory. Now, and I am aware of the counter argument that ball earthers say, well, this only applies to polarized light, because it does say in the definition polarized light. So before I give the definition, I want to address the counter to it, so that because it's important, this on our side, that you know what the counter is going to be. Just go to Google and type in, is sunlight polarized? Light coming to us directly from the sun is not polarized. It is the part of sunlight that is scattered by molecules in the air that is. Well, all of the atmosphere above us is molecules. And the scattering, the Rayleigh scattering, is what makes the light polarized. So the sunlight coming to us is polarized through the atmosphere. It isn't directly if we lived in a vacuum, but because we have gas pressure next to a vacuum, it means that the light is, as it comes through the atmosphere, it is polarized. Okay? So the test that I'm about to demonstrate is valid because even though it's using a polarized filter to make the point, the atmosphere is polarized because of the atmosphere, right? Dextrorotatory is defined as having the property of rotating the plane of polarized light to the right, i.e. clockwise facing the oncoming radiation. So I'm now going to demonstrate a proof that the sugars that Rumpus was having in his laser tank experiment claim bends the light. It's the sugars that's bending the light, not the density gradients as he claims. This is really important because if it's not the density gradients as Rumpus claims, everything that he demonstrated in his video is wrong. It's that simple. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this file here. This one. Now, what this guy does is he's got the 3 different types of sugars. There's glucose, fructose, and whatever the third one is. And you're not going to hear the sounds, but it doesn't matter. What he's got is a polarized light filter behind it that represents atmospheric light. And what he shows when the video, when he moves the light behind it, you can see the effect of the light. Yeah, he talks about the rotations here. He's got the 3 sugar molecules. We've got sucrose, fructose, and whatever the other one is. And he talks about the rotation of all 3 of them. Now, you'll notice that 2 of them are positive, 66, 52, and 1 of them is negative, so 92. So as he moves the light behind it, the filter or passes the light behind it, 2 of them are going to go to the right or the left, and then the other one's going to go the opposite way to a lesser extent. Now, what this is proving is that it's the dextrorotation of the element of the sugars that is bending the light. It's not the density of the gradient as Rumpus claims. Now, light does light does refract as it goes through less dense mediums, but we'll come to that in a minute. But I just want to make this point really clear. If the sugars cause the light to change their angle, Rumpus has got two problems there. He's got either the density gradients causing it or the dextro rotation of the sugar molecule in question, whichever one it was that was used in the tank. They do different things. I don't know which one it was, but it's just a convenient side effect of sugar that it's dextro rotatory and it bends the light accordingly. So as the guy passes the filter, the polarized filter, you can see that two of them are going to the right to the left and the other one's going from the left to the right to different extents. This proves that the light going through the sugar solution in Rumpus's tank is not being bent because of the gradient. It's being bent because of the sugar solution itself. And we know that the light from the sun, as it passes through the atmosphere, is polarized. Now that means that immediately Rumpus's claim is 50% weaker than what it was at the start. Now, if it's 50% weaker, and he's got a correlation. He hasn't got a cause. The cause is not density gradient. He's got a correlation. He can't prove that the cause was caused by the density gradient. But he summarized by saying that's how light behaves when it goes through a density gradient. Well, we do live in a density gradient, but he can't demonstrate that light fluctuates or curves the way he does in the air. He needs the sugar solution, right? But that's not representing real world. So Rumpus's claim originally has been diluted by 50% because there's two alternatives. But it's also not been caused by the density gradient. It's correlating with the density gradient because the other correlative factor is the fructose, the molecule itself. Dextro rotation is a thing, and Rumpus hasn't told people about that, and he's misled people because it's not a cause, it's a correlation, and we know that correlation is not causation. So Rumpus has actually got a 50-50 correlation, and he can't prove that it is the density gradient that's causing the curvature of light through a sugar solution. It's the fructose itself or the glucose or whatever sugar molecule it was in that specific test. So he's down to a correlation. At best, he's 50-50, but it isn't the density gradient that's causing it as per his claim. That's a problem because he didn't tell you that. He's told you what he wants you to hear. Now, what I want to do now is I just want to go back to the definition of PSYOP because this is important. PSYOP, PSYOP definition. Let's go back to the word definition. Because when somebody, PSYOP dictionary definition, there we go, that one will do, Wikipedia. Psi operations are operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. Well, I'm going to tell the audience that Rumpus has been selectively conveying selected information to influence their views. Because he's not told you that there are two things that cause the light to do what it does. And the most obvious one is not actually the density gradient of which he claims. It's the dextro rotation of the sugar molecules. Depending on which sugar it was, is going to give the effect that Rumpus demonstrates and relies on to make his whole presentation. So is he doing a PSYOP there? I'm going to say he is because he's not saying the second part of it. Okay, so I've dealt with the dextro rotation. I'm now going to deal with what light actually does in the atmosphere, whether it's flat or curved. So if I can now get to there we go, that one. These three papers are what I rely on, and I've done this for ages because what they do is they demonstrate actual science for what light does. And these papers don't exist anymore on the internet because, or they may exist somewhere, but what's his face? M. Scott Veach had them removed because he doesn't like me using them, but I've still got hard copies of them. So these papers are important. So don't lose sight of the fact that these are on screen right now because they're not easy to get hold of anymore. Now, I'm going to talk about this one first. The word I want you to focus on is the word negligible. This is to do with the refractive indices of water vapor, air, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, deuterium, and helium. Basically, this is the air of the atmosphere, what we breathe. And it's talking about the refractive indices of them, right? And it says in the abstract, it's full of legalese, this. It's talking about stuff that I honestly don't really understand. But what I do understand is the abstract. And when it talks about the effect of the refractive index of these particular gases, it shows that the absorption line of whatever has a negligible effect on the refractive index of these things. So the key word I'm focusing on there is the negligible effect on the refractive index. Negligible being the key word. Rumpus showed in his hangout, he showed the light rays that all went from a zero value, and they curved wildly up and down to greater degrees and lesser degrees in both directions. And I'm going to say that that's not negligible, and it doesn't follow a curved path. Now, the second paper that I rely on is this one where they were trying to do a computer simulation of atmospheric phenomena. Now, refraction, as we all know, there's 5 types of refraction, and the curvature of light is not one of them. Rumpus will have you believe that the curvature of light is refraction, and it's not. Refraction is defined, and the one that they often cite is lumen, but it's lumen with regards to the atmosphere, with respect to the horizon. The horizon itself doesn't loom. So the 7/6R nonsense doesn't even exist as an effect of refraction, but Rumpus is happy to let you believe that it does. So the minute they say refraction, word association makes you think that it's curvature of light, and it isn't. Refraction is defined. There are 5 effects. Bendy light isn't one of them. Again, is he cherry picking certain information to influence your perceptions? Of course he is. He wants you to believe that you live on a sphere. Now, in this particular paper, they were trying to create computerized simulation of atmospheric phenomena. And what it talks about is the importance of knowing where the science is found. Now, they base their simulation on 3 main points. Fermat's principle. It yields the physically based description of the light path through a non-homogeneous medium with a continuously varying index of refraction, right? Continuously varying is really important because it's varying from point to point to point along the path. It isn't following a curve. So at every integer across the 34 miles, be it centimeters, millimeters, miles, every point, the refractive index varies. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, depending on temperature, pressure, humidity. There's 4 factors that are itemized, but it doesn't follow a curved path. Now, again, further down in this article, it describes what the effects of refraction is in the atmosphere. And he talks about the application of Snell's law, but this is the key part I want to focus on. Under normal or standard circumstances, that would be Rumpus's version of 7/6R. The effects are, again, negligible. Well, if I pull up a definition for the word negligible, you can try it yourself. It just says so small or ineffective it isn't worth considering. Yet his whole argument is based on refraction. Well, if his whole argument is based on refraction, but it's negligible, then it's not following a curved path because it's negligible. Now, because it varies from point to point along the path ray, that's something I'm going to come back to shortly, but remember the phrase, it varies from point to point to point along the path that the light takes. This article here, it was written by school kids, high school kids from Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever it was, secondary school kids, and they get it. Rumpus is telling people incomplete information that's just not true, and he's misleading people into thinking that light follows a curved path. It doesn't. In this article, it says it's well known that the Earth's atmosphere is not homogeneous or homogeneous. As a result, light traveling in the atmosphere will undergo refraction, and this is the key bit, and the traveling path will deviate from a straight line, right? Now, there's a moot point there, a semantic point to what does that mean? Does a traveling path deviating from straight, is it a wave or is it actually a curve? Now, obviously, the Rumpus will have you believe that it's a curve. But let's have a look at what happens if we go to if you go to Google and type in a line that deviates from straight and then click images, you'll get something that's like this. The curvature is a measure of how much a curve deviates from a straight line. So you can see that it's following a wave function. It isn't following a curve. Yes, this little bit here is a curve, but then it goes back up, and that reflects the changes in pressure, density, humidity, whatever the 4 factors are that you'll find on the Debunked curve calculator website. But it varies from point to point. So every point along the path that the light takes, at every millimeter, every meter, every foot, every mile, that is a new integer, and you need to know the refractive indexes, and light will deviate from straight at every single point. Effectively, it's going to give us a wave. It's not going to give us a curved trajectory the way Rumpus needs to make people believe that we're on a sphere. So the point overall is that Rumpus is telling people curve, and it isn't doing that. you can research this yourself. You can look everywhere yourself, and you'll realize that light is not doing what Rumpus claims. But he absolutely needs you to believe that, so that he can get away with claiming that light's following 7.6R. But it isn't. So I've demonstrated that the real cause for the density gradient that's causing the light to refract was actually the dextro-rotation of the light through a polarized filter, because fructose and sucrose and glucose, or whatever whichever one was being used here, that has dextro-rotative attributes to it that the atmosphere does not have. You can't demonstrate that light follows a curved path through the atmosphere. You can't demonstrate that it follows a curved path through a density gradient in air. I can demonstrate that the science supports it to be negligible in effect. And I can also demonstrate that the real cause was probably the dextro-rotation of the molecule, because the light we see through the atmosphere is polarized, and we know that it is dextro-rotatory. So at best, Rumpus has got a 50-50% correlation, and that isn't proof. That is not demonstrating the point that he needs people to believe and accept. And because that's not demonstrating the point, he can't prove that light follows a curved path in the atmosphere. And indeed, if he was trying to show that light follows a curved path in the atmosphere, he should be showing something done in the atmosphere that shows that light follows a curved path, not in a sugar solution in a tank of water. That's not how we see our world. We see it through air. So Rumpus needs to demonstrate that air will allow light to curve, but it doesn't. And the thing to remember as well is in the air, if we are on a sphere, the minute the light ray comes from the lighthouse or whatever thing it is that it's going into the eye from, the earth is falling away from the light ray at all times. And that's effectively putting the light ray through a less dense medium at every single point. And if it's going through a less dense medium at every single point along the way, it's going to start bending away up. Not following a curved path and becoming less curved. It's deviating from straight. But because it's deviating from straight but into a less dense medium, then it's going to start curving up. And that really kills Rumpus's point, because the light is always going through a less dense medium. It's a density gradient going the opposite way. And that's regardless of whether it's on a flat plane or a curve. But overall, the point is that I can demonstrate fructose or sucrose, glucose, whatever, is dextro-rotatory. That's the effect of the curvature of light that he demonstrates. It isn't true to say that light follows a curved path. And because of that, he's misleading people. Research it yourself. Find out what Fermat's principle on the trajectory of light states. It varies from point to point to point. It travels the least amount of time. That's the other thing. Fermat's principle on the trajectory of light states that light travels to its destination in the least amount of time. When has a curve ever been quicker than a straight line? It isn't, is it? It's always longer because the distance is longer. So overall, my concluding point, and then I'll close, is that Rumpus has lied to people about what's the cause of this bend in this thing here. And the effect of it is that it dismisses, or it allows to be dismissed, the whole of his presentation. And he can't respond. He doesn't have a counter to the original assertion that I made. Whatever this land is, we shouldn't be seeing it. But when I get down to the beach and I still see it, we definitely shouldn't be seeing it. And in both instances, he can't prove that light curves, and all of the science proves that light deviates from straight at all points along the pathway, and Rumpus can't prove otherwise. So ultimately, it comes down to, if light's deviating from straight, it is not following a curve. The Rumpus can't prove his claims. He's deceiving people with telling people false statements of fact, and he satisfies the definition of a psyop. He's conveying selected information to influence their beliefs and opinions and motives or whatever. And Rumpus is the epitome of a psyop. All I'm doing is pointing out that he's not telling you the truth. You can make up your own mind. You can research what Fermat's principle states. It's everywhere. It deviates from straight. It doesn't follow a curved path. And that's the end of my presentation. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. He's lied to you. Light's not following a curved path. I'm done.
Excellent. Well done. Right, okay. We do have the Rumpus in chat, actually, making a little bit of noise. So I've just moderated him up for the evening, seeing as that this presentation is essentially about him. So, people just have to suck it up and listen if he's got something to say. He's got his freedom to respond. Right, okay, so we have some questions, Tony. Are you ready?
Go, go, go.
From the Adam Meakin, what as in dextrose? I assume that means what as in dextrose? Ranty Flat Earth. Do you understand what that means? That was his actual phrasing. No, if you've not, you're gonna have to work harder there, Adam. If you want to get a question right. Okay, so from Kango24, please supply a citation that the light we see is polarized. He also says it again in a second comment, which he says citation that light passed through the atmosphere is polarized. And it's his claim that such light is said to be unpolarized because it is composed of many waves with all possible directions of polarization.
I did answer this in the presentation, but all you got to do, I'm screen sharing. Do you want to put it on?
Yeah, you're ready to go.
Right, so let me Google that for you. So if you heard of that website, let me Google that for you. If you just type in, is sunlight polarized, ? It says light coming to us directly from the sun is not polarized. That means if there was no atmosphere and it's coming directly to us, it's not polarized. However, the sentence continues, and this is the part that dumb people need to pay attention to. It is the part of sunlight that is scattered by molecules in the air that is polarized. That means that if it's polarized coming to us through the atmosphere, when the guy uses the polarized filter to demonstrate the bending of light, that is a valid comparison to demonstrate that the rumpus is not telling the truth. Because the polarized filter represents the polarized light through the Rayleigh scattering in the atmosphere caused by the droplets and the molecules, the air that we breathe. So the citation, I mean, you can look it up. You can look into Rayleigh scattering, but it is polarized. That's the answer to his question.
Okie dokie, right, let me just get this up. Here we go. Right, okay, so the next question is from Rude Earther. Does this mean Rumpus thinks we live in sugar water?
Yes.
That's it?
Yes. If you're gonna make a representative point, it has to be representative of the world in which we live. Otherwise, it's false. We don't live in sugar water. We do live in fluid. Air is considered to be a fluid, but it's not got dextrorotatory aspects to it, whereas sugar solution does have dextrorotatory aspects to it, and for that reason, it's an invalid test. Do it with something that's not dextrorotatory. We don't have dextrorotation in the molecules in the atmosphere. Google it, you'll see we don't have it. So it's misrepresentative to demonstrate the point that he makes using a dextrorotatory thing, because the atmosphere is not dextrorotatory, but it is polarized, and that's what proves my point's true, because it's polarized.
We have a comment in chat from Glowbusters Bob who says light becomes polarized via the Faraday effect also. Rumpus is clueless. Agree? Disagree?
Rumpus is absolutely clueless. Rumpus, no, he's not clueless. Rumpus knows this shit. He knows this. Rumpus is deliberately deceiving people with half-truths. And again, I'll go back to the definition of PSYOP. He's deliberately telling people half-truths. And that's considered to be selected information to influence people's perceptions and opinions. If people go away thinking after his presentation that light follows a curved path, they think refraction equals curved light. It doesn't. Refraction is defined. It's got 5 effects, and none of them are curved light. But people that watch his presentation will leave thinking that light refracts, and that means bent light, curved light, and it doesn't. So he's conveying selected information to influence people's opinions, and he's not being truthful. Well, that's PSYOP.
Okay, so we have from Shills versus Shills. That's you would say it was a sock account of the real real Shills versus Shills. Anyway, it says, question for Riley, have you studied Skull and Bones yet? I guess that's something that you and him have had a talk about in the past.
I have no idea what that even means. No, is the answer.
Okay, right, okay, so from Kango24, so he wants you to go back to your citation, basically on a line that deviates from straight PDF. And is it possible for you to read the next bit? I would assume that's, where you are there on the right-hand side, if you could read that entire paragraph.
The curvature is a measure of how much a curve deviates from a straight line. If c is a curvature is positive if the curve bends in the direction of its normal vector, i.e. in the direction in which the image is traversed to the left, and negative when it bends to the right.
So do you see what he's? I think what he's trying to pull up there is that in the first sentence it mentions deviates from a straight line, and then sentence 3 it starts talking about curvature. Curvature.
Yeah, but the key point that is missing is it's from straight, right? So all points along the line, it's deviating from straight. So you can argue with one point to another point, yeah, that can be a curve. But then when you bring the next point in, it then starts to correct itself and deviates again from the original point, which is straight. So if it was deviating from a straight line, but it meant curve, it would say following a curved trajectory. And it doesn't say that. A deviation from straight, according to Fermat's principle, the trajectory of light is clear. It's a wave, and it's deviating slightly. And we see it in the Skunk Bay.
Just go back to that one point there. I just want to clarify something about paragraphs and how they're formed. So when you start a new paragraph, the first sentence in that new paragraph is the basis for the remainder of the paragraph. So everything that's said in that opening, you can say it's an opening statement of that particular paragraph. The rest of it is all following on from that first sentence. So in this particular case, it talks about a deviation from straight, and that's the point.
Yeah. We see deviations from straight in Skunk Bay. When the Skunk Bay footage, I'm sure everybody's seen that, when the horizon's stretching and shrinking and squashing and stretching and all that distortion that goes on, all those light rays are either bending slightly up and then bending slightly down and slightly up, because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the variation from, or the deviation from straight, the slightly up, slightly down. If it was following a curved path, it would always be bending down, and the thing the thing in the distance, that little mound of land in the distance, will be falling behind the curvature of the Earth and coming towards you, falling behind the curvature of Earth, and all we're seeing is a vertical deviation, and that stretch and shrinking is the deviation from straight. Because if you had a continuously variable deviation from straight, and it was neither doing one nor the other but continuously varying, you would get Skunk Bay. That's exactly what we see in Skunk Bay.
So you were bringing something up then. You was just about to open something up when I interrupted.
I was going to bring up Skunk Bay, but I can't find my bookmark for it anymore. It seems to have been deleted or lost or whatever. So we're all familiar with Skunk Bay. That is a perfect example of all the light rays deviating slightly from straight. When we see the oil platforms, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bring up the oil platforms from Quantum Eraser recently. Just, the Boo-Bye Ball video. Let's see if we can find it quickly. Because that is another example where the light rays are deviating from straight. It's what they call refraction, but actually it's demonstrating real world the deviation from straight. And if I can find it quickly, well, obviously when I want it, I can't find it. I
think the Skunk Bay probably is a better one to use because it's a proper time lapse in it.
Yeah, but I just wanted to show. Here we go. So let's pull this up. So on the what do you call it? The Boo-Bye Ball on the oil platforms. The horizon being behind the second platform is the point, but the ballers bring up the bendy lines here to say, oh look, there's refraction. Well, this isn't refraction as per 76R. This is the deviation from straight that we're seeing, because the light rays that are in the eye or the sensor of the camera from the top compared to the light rays of the bottom, all them light rays are going into the camera lens from there, but they're all deviating from straight along the way, and that's why sometimes it looks compressed and sometimes it looks more stretched, because they're all deviating negligibly from straight, but they're not following a curved trajectory. And Rumpus can't prove it, and there's no science that supports it. He's just lying to people. It's that simple.
Okay, so we actually have a response from the Rumpus who says, Anthony, changing the polarization of light does not change its direction. You moron.
Okay, so let's do that again then, just for the benefit of Rumpus. So this is the model or the test that this guy does, and he has on screen the values for the fructose, the sucrose, and glucose. I think they are 3 sugars, and they rotate at different degrees. You got 66 plus, 52 plus, but 92 minus. And as he passes the polarized light, that will be the light being diffused from Rayleigh scattering in our atmosphere. You can see that two of them are doing the same thing going one way to the other, but the other one's not doing the same thing, it's doing the opposite, but to a lesser rate. This proves that the sugar is dextrorotatory and it's causing the light to change. Now, this is absolute proof, Rumpus. You can't argue against this. This is real-world demonstration that the cause of your laser beam test in the fish tank is being bent by, or the light is being changed by the dextrorotation of the sugars, because this is proving it. You are literally looking at it on screen now. You're lying to people if you deny this, Rumpus. But, of course, you have to lie to people because you tell people selective information to make them believe that light can follow a curved path. It doesn't. What you're seeing in that laser test that you had on screen is the dextrorotation element of the sugars. And you can't prove otherwise, but I can prove that it is. So unless you can demonstrate it in the atmosphere and prove that it deviates following a curved path, not deviating from straight at different points along the way, show that there's a curved ray. It's nonsense, Rumpus. You know it and I know it. But I can demonstrate that fructose or glucose is dextrorotatory and is the reason why your so-called claim of density gradient in the sugar tank solution is not actually what you claim it is, and you're just lying to people with false information that's not true.
Okay, so we have a comment from Globebusters. Now, it's something that I am absolutely going to be talking about on Jeranisms this week now. It was supposed to be last week about this presentation. And essentially, he's making the same point. And I'll just read out the quote. On the globe model only, as light moves away from the source on the ground, it becomes higher with respect to the ground, and air becomes thinner, making downward refraction highly unlikely.
Yeah, it's the other way.
And from Bob the Science Guy, who asks, will you show the clear one, Anthony? I'm assuming that's down, it's the clear image of the platforms, the oil platforms.
Until Bob the Science Guy, Bob the Fallacy Guy, until he understands what an independent variable is in a scientific experiment and accepts and admits that you must manipulate it, I'm not answering anything that comes from that guy, because he's another deceiving piece of shit. He's a liar. He denies that you have to manipulate the independent variable to prove the cause of an effect. And until he can change his position, I don't want anything to do with him, and I'm not encouraging him. So no, I won't be addressing anything from him. Sorry.
Alright, let me just get rid of some of them. So, let's get back up to date. We have a quote from the Rumpus. Sleeping Warrior, and I'm going to read it in its entirety so I don't miss anything out. So, Sleeping Warrior, you are an, now this is from the globe's leading expert, you are an auteur, moron. That video does not do what you say, moron.
Do I need to play it again?
Play it again, Sam.
Okay, so he's got 3 sugar solutions in these little vials. They all do different amounts of rotation. 2 of them are dextrorotative and 1 of them is the opposite. And they vary at different rates. The amounts are on screen. I can't remember which way rounds they are. It doesn't matter. The point is they are sugar solutions and they are dextrorotatory. And when the polarized light moves behind, it passes the light through them and it bends the light in different ways per solution. This proves that it's the dextrorotation element of the light that Rumpus is claiming is being bent by the density gradient. It proves that it's actually the dextrorotation of the polarized light that we do see in the atmosphere because of Rayleigh scattering that's bending the light in the sugar solution. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the density gradient. And if it is, you can't demonstrate it. He needs to do it with a sugar solution or a solution that isn't dextrorotatory, because we don't have dextrorotation in the atmosphere. So let's see what he does now. You can see as he's passing the light, you can see that that was a bit too short. You can see that as he's passing the light, you can see that this one's going right to left and then left to right at the same rate as this one, but at the same direction, but at a different rate. And then the one in the middle is going the opposite way round. And this proves in real world experiments that's demonstrating what Rumpus's claim is false. So he doesn't have to like it, but this is real world. Sorry, Rumpus, you're lying.
So we have from Right the Hand who says, what is polarized light?
He bullies girls, and it's unnecessary. Next question.
Is that your response to what is polarized light?
Yep.
Okay, right. So we have from the Sleeping Warrior. The Sleeping Warrior. The Adam Meakin. It's the density gradient and the sugar syrup in the water that causes the effect. Neither levo nor dextro rotation are in effect in the phenomenon here. Stir the tank, no effect.
Well, if that's true, Rumpus hasn't demonstrated that. But I can demonstrate that the dextro or the dextro rotatory element is demonstrated on screen. But if you stir the tank and then mix up the density gradients, I don't know whether it does it or not. Rumpus hasn't shown it. But what I can show is that the dextro rotation attributes of these sugar or fructose glucose solutions is affecting the light. So unless there's evidence to the contrary, then this proves that the bending of light, the way Rumpus wants you to believe, is actually being caused by this attribute. It's a convenient attribute found only in sugar solution. Now, if it's not the case, then we need to see proof that it's not. But just claiming it isn't enough. You need to show demonstration that it isn't the way that Meakin claims. But that's down to the Rumpus. So let's not argue Rumpus's claim for him. Let's get Rumpus to demonstrate it with some supporting evidence. Because until he does, Rumpus is debunked. Because this does demonstrate that the dextro rotation is causing light to bend.
Okay, so we have a statement here from the Rumpus. So he's said this a couple of times, so I'm assuming that it's quite important for him. That video does not show that the path of light is changed by the solutions. It changes the intensity because they are using a polarizing filter. Utter moron.
Right, so if it was the intensity, they would be brighter and dimmer, right? They wouldn't be traversing right to left or left to right. We clearly see, we'll just pick on this one here for the left-hand side one. We see that it's going right to left and left to right as the light changes. And we know because of Rayleigh scattering that the light from the sun is polarized as it comes through the atmosphere. So unless it was in a vacuum, if we were in a vacuum, then we would get non-polarized light. And we can see that these are going in different directions as the polar filter is changing behind. So Rumpus is incorrect. He's not telling the truth, or he's just wrong, one or the other.
Okay, just waiting for anything else that will come up.
I can go to bed now.
Right, the Hand says, how funny, Anthony, make excuses to not answer the hard questions.
I don't care what Right the Hand says. Next.
Right. If we don't get any questions or anything worthwhile, I will round up. Let's see. The Rumpus. The light is coming from the back. Sleeping Warrior is a, you can guess it, moron.
Doesn't matter where the light's coming from, it's passing through the sugar solution and it's changing its angle when it does. And it's polarized light, like in the atmosphere. So the test is demonstrating that the atmospheric light that hits the sugar solution in the test or passes through the atmosphere, it's because the atmosphere has not got dextro rotation elements to it. That's why this is important. So again, it needs to demonstrate that light in the atmosphere follows a curved path rather than varying from point to point to point along, deviating from straight, which is what the science actually says. So just because Rumpus says it doesn't make it true. The science is not supporting him, and we can demonstrate that it doesn't support him. And even if I'm wrong here, he needs to come up with better evidence to prove that light follows a curved trajectory in the atmosphere, because doing it in a sugar solution, A, misrepresents what we're actually doing. We don't live in sugar solution. He needs to do it in the air. But also he needs to show that it's not dextro rotation that's causing it, because I can show that the dextro rotation of these sugars is altering the way the light's moving, and that's countering his argument. It reduces his argument down to a correlative effect, not a causative effect, and at best it's 50-50. And that, I mean you can work it out yourself. If it's correlation, it's not causation. If it's now down to 50-50, then even if I'm wrong, he's still got to demonstrate his claim to be true, because I've got evidence that's counter to his claim that doesn't indicate that it's true. So it's down to you, Rumpus. If you're going to claim that light follows a curved path in the atmosphere and it curves, prove it. Do it on a curve on the Earth that's supposed to be. Do it in the real world. That's what we want to see. Show that the light is curving. You can't, because you're going to come back with level is flat. curved is flat or whatever it was saying, and we're going to be like, no, dickhead, it's just flat, straight, not curving, not all. He'll change the meaning of words to suit his narrative. But again, that's indicative of psyop.
We have a bit of a statement here again from the Adam Meakin. Conversely, the slow dissolution rate of glucose to produce a severe density gradient is not analogous to our atmosphere.
That's
go on.
That's supporting my point. He needs to demonstrate something that is analogous with our atmosphere, because our atmosphere doesn't have a slowly dissolving dextrorotatory molecule in a water. We have non-dextrorotatory elements that are in gas, and we know from the current science, as cited by 3 documents, that the effects of refraction are negligible, so small and not worth talking about. Yet Rumpus is arguing that we can see all the way around the curvature of the Earth and see our own arse in a telescope. It's complete and utter lies.
So from Brian's logic, question, Anthony, would hydrogen bonding in water cause a very different effect from non-bonded gas?
I don't know, you'd have to test it. All I can say is that it's the hydrogen bonding in water that gives water weight, whereas the hydrogen bonding or lack of hydrogen bonding in gas means that the molecules don't have any weight because they don't have any collective mass. The only way you can have a collective mass is to put them in a container, but that would mean that we must be contained if the atmosphere has got weight. So to answer his question, I don't know. It'd have to be demonstrated, because it's not what you know or what you claim or what you believe or what you preach. It's what you can prove, and I can prove that there is another cause what's going in that sugar solution, and it explains what Rumpus is demonstrating. And even if I'm wrong, at least there's a second cause there that he can then go away and debunk and show what the real cause is. And that's what he has to do. He's making the claim.
Okay, so question from Shills versus Shills. What is polarized light?
Shills versus Shills. That's another version of right the hand, isn't it? Tell you what I'll do for just because it's Shills versus Shills, I'll do it on Google. What is polarized light? According to this, Wikipedia, that's the best place to start for ballers. Polarized light is a property applying to transverse waves that specifies a geometrical orientation of the oscillations. In transverse waves, blah, 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 blah. If you want that explanation, if that suffices, then there you go. But the atmospheric light is polarized. That was the point that I was making, because it goes through Rayleigh scattering. So the video that I was demonstrating is proportionate to the light that we receive, but it's when it goes through the glucose or the sucrose molecules that is being misrepresented by the Rumpus is the reason why the light's so-called bending. And we don't have that. But we do have polarized light in the atmosphere because it goes through Rayleigh scattering. So whether it's polarized or not is my point, and it supports me. But it's the dextrorotatory elements of bendy light that doesn't support Rumpus. So if he thinks he's got better evidence than that, he needs to demonstrate it with that. Because at the moment, I'm right.
Okay, I'm looking for any kind of other comments or anything that's a question, and I'm not seeing anything right now, so I'll give it 30 more seconds, and if nothing's popped up, we'll round this one up. I have had a message from Brenda, who wants to come in and have a little chat with you. What would you say to that?
To be honest, Brenda can't pick out where a horizon is, and if she can't pick out where a horizon is, how on earth do you think she's qualified to explain anything to do with polarized dextrorotatory light? If you can't pick out a horizon, Brenda, I'm sorry, but Brenda, you're not intellectually honest. You will literally lie. You will say black to white if it supports your argument that we live on a sphere. I'm not interested in talking to somebody that literally verbal diarrhea is shite to deceive people. You're lying. You're like Rumpus. You are just an overt liar. Oh, and by the way, Brenda, when you came in the other night and accused me of lying to you and you didn't have any evidence to support your assertion, well, then came in the following night and still didn't bring any evidence with you, I would expect you to retract that comment that I lied to you, because you haven't produced any evidence that I have, because I didn't lie to you, Brenda. The Earth's not a ball. It's not my problem that the evidence doesn't support your narrative. And it's also not my problem that you can't pick a horizon in a picture that everybody else can see. We don't live on a sphere, Brenda. And you not being able to pick out a horizon when the definition that a 5-year-old could do is kind of it puts you out of any conversations thereafter. It's really easy to pick out a horizon, Brenda, and you're not honest enough to do it honestly.
We have a statement from the Rumpus. So he says, Sleeping Warrior is ace. However, he doesn't understand the video is sighting. He doesn't understand polarization.
Whether I do or do not understand polarization does not change the point that the video makes. We do have polarized light through the atmosphere. I've said it 2 or 3 times. That polarized light is being demonstrated or replicated by the filter behind. The light changes when the light's like manipulated. The effect we see is different directions of light. It doesn't support the Rumpus. I don't have to understand it. All I have to do is demonstrate it. And if I demonstrate that the lights are behaving differently to each other because of the different rotation elements to the dextro-rotation elements, then it doesn't matter whether or not I understand it or not. What matters is I can demonstrate that the light's behaving differently based on its dextro-rotative effects. Them effects don't exist in the atmosphere. So it's a misrepresentation, Rumpus. You're deceiving people, and that's literally the definition of a psyop, or lie, if you will, whichever.
So from Chris Berry, who, if anybody hasn't subscribed to his channel already, I would highly recommend that you go over there because he does some excellent experiments of his own. So from Chris Berry, what does this mean in the grander refraction scheme?
Okay, so it means that light doesn't follow a curved path through the atmosphere the way the sugar solution shows the light curving. And if it doesn't follow a curved path, the science is saying that Fermat's principle is the path that the path that the light takes in the shortest amount of time. Well, that's never ever ever a curve, because a curve is always longer in time than the straight line. And it says that the effects of refraction are negligible. So the deviations from straight are negligible. And again, we see that in the in this. We see it in this Bubai. So we know that these crane arms are straight, but the light rays from the top, the middle, and the bottom are being deviated from straight as they come into the camera sensor, and it's negligible. Now the ballers will misrepresent this and say, "Oh, this is crazy amounts of refraction," but what they mean by that is that the curvature of the Earth is bringing the light back up, or the lumen is bringing back. But that's not even what refraction is. The refraction is negligible. And the reason why we see this far with the horizon is because the visibility is good enough. So it's a direct function of visibility. The further you can see, the more the horizon will rise. And if the visibility is good, it'll rise behind the platforms. If the visibility is not as good, it'll rise in front of the platforms. Sometimes it'll be, and obviously the incoming tide and the outgoing tide affects the rising up of the water in the foreground too. But sometimes it's going to look like a ball. And obviously the ballers will come out with the white swan argument. And we say, yeah, but on a clear day when there's not many waves, what do you know? The horizon's nowhere near 1.2 miles. But this demonstrates the refractive effects to be negligible. They deviate from straight. All these rays that are coming in from this straight line of the arm of the crane, they are deviating from straight to a negligible effect. They're deviating from straight, and that's how we see this. This is purely demonstrating Fermat's principle of a deviation from straight. It's not following a curved path because there's no science that says it does. It's just lies to make you think that you're on a ball when you're not.
Okay, so Bob the Science Guy is looking for somebody to debate. Essentially, he wants to debate the scientific method, but in his own words, not mine, he wants to find somebody smarter than Sleeping Warrior to do that. I don't know whether that was a dig against you, Tony, or just him touting for business in this scientific debate thing. However, the challenge is out there, so if there's any flat earthers that want to take that up, want to rise to the challenge, I will host it here. Bob the Science Guy versus whoever can come with the scientific method, and let's see how that pans out. Okay.
Shout out Retracted. He doesn't understand an independent variable. Nobody talk to that guy. He's a moron.
The Rumpus says the video does not show light bending, it shows it changing intensity. We've already been through that one. There's another one from him. Sleeping Warrior has no understanding of Fermat's principle. All of science says it leads to curving light.
No, it doesn't.
Only the fantastically brilliant sleeping warrior does not accept this basic and scientifically proved fact.
So I'll read again. It is well known that the Earth's atmosphere is not homogeneous or homogeneous. As a result, light travelling in the atmosphere will undergo refraction, and the travelling path will, quote, deviate from a straight line. Now, Rumpus, no matter how much you say straight is curved, it isn't. Straight's the antithesis of curved. It's straight. And guess what? There's only one way that works, and it's our way. It doesn't work in your way. Light isn't following a curved path. You're a moron. Oh, and you also deny that water vapor, when we're looking at horizon shots, he denies that water vapor is less dense than the medium than the medium around it. That's why we get the shimmering effect on the horizon, that it looks like heat haze. That's the water vapor that the light's traversing through. And what do you know? It refracts through it, but it bends up because the water vapor is less dense. So again, it's going through less dense medium, and it's bending away from the normal. And if the Earth's not a sphere because it's flat or similar, then that's going to cause light to go up a little bit. But if it's a sphere, it's going to cause it to go up a lot, because the Earth's falling away as the water vapor is going up. So not only have you got the reduction in density because of the Earth falling away, you've also got the refractive effects of water vapor, and there's a double whammy there. Light's going to be bending up from the perspective of the observer, and that's going to cause, and that's because the Earth's falling away. It's going to be double, but it's only on a flat plane where it's negligible, and it has to be a flat plane, at least locally flat. But we know for a fact that it ain't following no curve, because the science doesn't say that it's curved. You need to demonstrate that light follows a curved path in the atmosphere, a curved path, Rumpus, not deviating from straight. Curve. You got to prove curve. Where's the curve? Show us the curve in the light, Rumpus. We all know you can't do it.
Okay, so seems like we have we have an opponent for Bob the Science Guy. Now, as there's no way to actually test whether anybody's smarter than you, Tony, and Bob the Science Guy is claiming that right the hand isn't, I'm going to have to rule that there's no way of actually determining that. So, in that case, I'm going to validate that actual putting his hand up, essentially, right the hand, sticking his hand up here and saying, I'll take you on, Bob the Science Guy. So, Bob the Science Guy, there it is. I know that in this particular sentence, well, there's a few sentences here, you actually want to debate Nathan Oakley. I don't think that's going to happen. But right the hand is willing to debate you. So, there you go. Let's see if you're a man of your word or not. Massive shout out to Ninja Man for the £3.99 super chat, who says, Rumpus, show us a object looming from behind a hill. Indeed, go ahead and do that. Right.
So let me just respond to that. I think right the hand's an idiot, but in the interest of beating Bob the fallacy guy, right the hand, all you need to ask him, and it's a really straightforward, point blank, narrow yes/no question. Just ask him, do you need to manipulate your independent variable to prove the cause of an effect? Or can you simply let nature take its course and correlate? And if he says that you can let it correlate, you win, because there's 10 citations on my channel where you have to manipulate it. The guy's a liar. So good luck on that right hand. Just ask him that one question and claim victory, because the guy's an idiot.
Nathan Oakley says he can debate me anytime. Anybody can, and essentially that's true. You just have to click the link and join. Dead easy. Whenever he's live, he's there to take on anybody. However, in this format, if you want to just do a one-on-one without the so-called mute button that you guys claim is always in effect, you know that isn't going to happen here. I won't mute you, unless obviously it's getting incredibly out of hand. Right, so I'm looking for any other comments on this, and I'm not seeing much. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds, and if nobody comes back with a comment or a statement or a question, then we'll just round up.
And all I'll do is conclude whilst we're waiting for the 30 seconds. At the end of the day, it's a psyop if somebody tells you partial facts that are not even facts, that are incorrect, because he's trying to influence your perception that as long as he can say that refraction causes curved light, if you go away thinking refraction and equals curved light, then that's the psyop complete. The science doesn't support him. the science is Fermat's principles on the trajectory of light, and it says that light deviates from straight lines at every point along point to point along the path, and it's the path that takes the least amount of time. A curve is longer than a straight line, and the deviations are negligible. The guy's lying to you. He is a psyop. He's pushing bullshit. Don't believe him. Go and look it up yourself. Read into Fermat's principle. Read into what does light do in the atmosphere. It deviates from straight. It does not follow a curved path. But I can't be any more clear than that. It's blatantly obvious.
Shout out to Paige, who says, if you think right the hand is such a moron, Bob, the science guy, it should be easy for you then. Indeed. And failing that, we have another stand-up flat earther, Brian's Logic, held his hand up and said, you know what, if you don't want to debate right the hand, he doesn't mind, he'll take you up on the challenge as well. So there we go, we've got two. So, Bob the Science Guy, you have put the challenge out. It's been accepted in at least 2 different places right now. I don't see any way you can't make a decision here to actually pick one. Get in touch with me, email me, ranty@rantyflatearth.com, or send me a message on Skype and we'll get something sorted out. Right, I don't see any other questions, Tony, so do you want to finish up by shouting your channel name out, where people can find you, and anything else that you want to say?
Everyone knows where they can find my channel. It's not a ball. Might not be flat, but it's definitely not a sphere. You can't have the horizon behind the platforms ever on your model. And if it does appear behind the platforms, it means the horizon's optical. It's the apparent horizon. It means it's not the geometric horizon. Shout outs to, I'll tell you what I want to do, Ranty. Just play, as we close out, go to Emma UK's channel and play the last, there's 2 videos that she's uploaded in the last couple of minutes, in the last couple of hours. It's Fight the Flat Earth claiming that the horizon is geometric and it's what boats go over. Somebody's put in the comments underneath that he's going to regret saying that. Well, the horizon's not geometric. The horizon is apparent. And Fight the Flat Earth is still telling people that gravity is a force, and still telling people that the horizon is what boats go over, despite evidence to the contrary that he doesn't like. But them words are going to come back and haunt him. Fight the Flat Earth, the horizon is not geometric, it's apparent. That means that boats can't go over it because it's optical. Now, it can only be geometric. Boats can only go over the horizon if it's geometric, and we know that it's not. And Emma UK has just cited you on her channel. So shout outs to Emma UK. Shout outs retracted from Fight the Flat Earth, and Bob the Fallacy Guy. Honestly, you're just as bad as the Rumpus and Brenda. I'm sorry, but you just lie to people.
I'm just going to respond to Nathan, who sent me a message on Skype. Without the so-called mute button, that won't happen here. That was my quote. However, it wasn't meant as a dig at Nathan. It was meant a dig at the Globers, because they're the ones claiming that they have a mute button imposed upon them, when essentially Nathan is just digging down and asking essentially for the specific question to be answered. So if you don't answer that, if you don't answer it in a timely fashion, you get muted. It's as simple as that, because in Nathan's platform, he doesn't tolerate that. He wants you to come in, provide your evidence, and if you're just going to dick around and you're not going to be answering the questions as he asks, then essentially you are going to get muted and you're just going to get shouted at. So just pointing that out, that wasn't a dig at Nathan, that was actually a dig at the Globers. So, with that...
Let's be honest though, Ranty. Nathan wouldn't do it if people like the Rumpus didn't go meet when Nathan's trying to say, answer my question, what is A, B, and C, and he just ignores it and he starts talking about something else completely altogether, and it does piss people off. But the reality is, ballers can't go into Nathan's because they die in Nathan's, and he doesn't need the mute button. All he's got to ask them is things like, is gravity a force? And they've got to start talking about bendy space-time. And the minute they do that, they can't explain Newton's apple falling. We all know it. They all go to Nathan's to die. And that's why they make an excuse that they can't go in there because of the mute button. Well, behave like proper people and admit that you can't prove your claims. And there wouldn't need to be a mute button, would there? It's your own fault, guys. I'm sorry, but Nathan's not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, if anybody knows how that actual channel started off and how poor it used to be with the way the Globers used to act towards him and the guests, the other flat earthers that used to join, it was awful, and there's no wonder that he had to start implementing some kind of rules at times to actually, sort of like stop them from doing that. They used the sniping that used to go on. They used to snipe people out all the time. They used to try porn bombing him. He's got to take control of his show. Do you know what I mean? If these Globers behaved themselves when they came in and acted normally, acted responsibly, and came in and wanted a proper conversation and brought the evidence, then there wouldn't be any need to silence anybody. There wouldn't be that need, but they can't control themselves, and that's been quite evident this week with, like you just say, with the Rumpers doing this mute thing. That was quite funny, actually. You should have made a little meme out of that. Right, so I'm going to round up. Thanks very much, Sleeping Warrior, for this presentation. I don't know if I'm going to go live again. Are you going to bed?
No.
Oh, right, okay. So what I might do is then, I might round up this show, have it as a one-off segment, go live again in around about 10 or 15 minutes if you want to jump on, carry on, have a little chat.
I'll go and get a brew.
Marvellous. Right, okay then. Well, with that, that's been Roundtable 28, the Globe's leading expert debunked by Sleeping Warrior. Thanks everybody for stopping by. Hopefully see you again in 15 minutes. That's if you're not watching the Super Bowl, that is. And I will see you all in the next one.